Welcome back to the Cuddy Show. Episode 3, I sit down with Adam DiMichele. He graduated high school as the Whippeal all-time leader in passing yards, was drafted 38th overall in the MLB draft, went on to Temple to throw for over 5,000 yards, and then eventually joined the coaching staff under Matt Rule. We talk about coaching, playing, his new performance center he's opened with his brother for quarterbacks and linebackers, and we talk about some of the prospects coming out of college into the draft this year.
One thing that interests me about you, we got kind of a similar thing coming out of high school. I think almost every student athlete has this problem. So maybe now that you can kind of look back with some clarity, and now you're kind of teaching some of the younger kids coming up what to do. The struggle of going from being, a multi-sport, multi-position athlete to just focusing in on one sport, one position. What were the struggles with that? And how did you ultimately come to the decision that you wanted to be a quarterback?
Well, now, to your first part of your question, I probably have about 20 to 25 quarterbacks that I'm training right now in the Pittsburgh area. And without really doing the research on it, I would think that every single kid that I'm training plays at least one other sport right now. So the days of like kids specializing, I think is over. Unless, for instance, you're a top, first through third round draft pick in baseball, or, and you know that at a young age, or you're like say LeBron James, we don't get too many basketball players out of Pittsburgh, even though we have a couple top 100 kids in the freshman class. But, for me growing up, I just couldn't stop, man. My parents had me going from, Little League baseball to AAU basketball to flag football. And then, it was just constant. And it was just one of the things where I'm one of 7 kids. So it wasn't like there was anything else to do besides us. We live, where your dad works, right across this little footbridge area. And, it's called Preston. Literally 10 yards from my house across the street was a giant 75-yard grass field with the basketball court, with the pavilion, with monkey bars, swing. So it's like, and at that time, hey man, like go ahead outside. Parents weren't necessarily worried about some of the stuff that's going on right now. So I just went out there and I just kind of played, but then when I got up into high school, in that range, it was like, okay, so, do you specialize? Because if you specialize, then you can start concentrating on, the weightlifting and gaining weight if you're going to be a football player, eating and trying to gain weight. If that's the avenue that you're going to take again. And if it's basketball, like what are you going to do in the summer, camps and things of that nature. So in high school, I went to football camps. I stopped playing AAU basketball. I spent time doing travel baseball. And I just couldn't. It was a tough decision, man. You're 16, 17 years old, and you're trying to make the toughest decision in your life. Ultimately, it's like, am I right? Is it wrong? Should I be doing this more? And I decided on baseball because I signed with Penn State out of high school. I'm sure, as you know, and I just thought to myself, like, man, I'm not trying to get my ass ran over by Lawrence Maroney and some of these Big Ten running backs. I was going to go play safety, and I wasn't built for that. At that time. And then baseball season came around. I threw pretty hard. Some scouts were around. I'm like, this is more my style. And, that was the first time in my life when I went to school in Florida for 2 years playing baseball that I ever played one sport and one sport only.
So what made you decide because you got drafted, right? And then you gave it up and went to Temple to play quarterback.
It was like one of them things. Again, every time when I was down there playing baseball, after practice, guess where I went? The basketball court, shot the basketball, played basketball with the hoop team. And then the outfield before baseball practice or after, we were throwing the football around. So it's like I couldn't stop. I was just stuck on playing those 3 sports, and that's all I knew. And it was just difficult to stop. So I just came back and I told my coach after my 2 years of playing at JUCO ball, I'm like, hey, listen, I got some offers for baseball. If any football schools come into the high school area, just say, hey, listen, you have a guy that played 2 years ago, is trying to get back into it. And he put some feelers out there, and I had a couple of offers. And I'm like, you know what, man, maybe I can go to college and play both baseball and football. So that was my plan initially. That's when I went to Temple to play baseball and football. And I kind of got there, and my coach was like, hey, listen, man, if you want to be a starting quarterback, you ain't playing baseball. So it was one of those deals, man. It's still one of those decisions that, I'm talking, how long ago was this? 2004 when I graduated, 2006 and 2007 when I got to Temple. So you're talking 14 years, from Temple. It's like, did I make the right decision? And every once in a while, you still think about it, if you can imagine that. it's not regrets, but it's like, what if I did something different? But obviously I'm in a good spot, and I feel really, content with the things I've done and the places I've been. So.
Yeah, it's hard to go from every season changing a sport into, all right, off season is just more of this, It kind of throws.
Yeah, you're talking, I was playing baseball in Florida, so we had a fall season when I first got down there, and that season doesn't even count. So you can imagine I'm playing 40 games in the fall, which I've never played 40 games in Pittsburgh. You're playing 18 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But this weather, your first game you're playing is usually snowing. And then you're talking, you have Christmas break, you come back in Florida, it's nice as heck out there, and you're playing another 60 games. So I'm over here like, holy cow. I mean, and every day you do the same exact drills. And it's like, man, I don't know if I could do this every single day. So it was just a different type of deal for me, something I wasn't used to. But like I said, man, it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of good people when I was down there.
Yeah, definitely. That's you get into those clubhouses and you meet some crazy people.
Baseball is a different animal. I mean, there's some strange cats playing baseball. I mean, just different mindset. Like you're talking bullpen. Middle relievers. It's like I'm from the north, right? We're from up here. You know what I mean? It's like you go down there. I was the only guy from up north. We're talking like right on the edge of Alabama and Florida, Destin, Florida, and there was me and a kid from New York. And, but he was originally from Puerto Rico, and everybody else is from Alabama, Louisiana, up northern Florida. And it's like, they're looking at me like, who's this dude? You know what I mean? So it was just different. You know what I mean? It was a different lifestyle for me to go into, but it definitely, opened my eyes to, I guess you could say the rest of the world. And, I met a lot of good people.
So you did the couple years at Temple. You had a good career. You had a cup of tea with some NFL teams, and then
real short little cup. I mean, you're talking like maybe a half a sip.
Yeah. So you ended up. I mean, you did pretty well in the CFL and the AFL. Do you think kind of more teams should think about moving to a minor league system in the NFL where you maybe take a late round quarterback or an undrafted free agent and put him in a CFL or AFL team to get game reps and develop?
Well, if you see me, for instance, right? Like, when I came out of high school, I was obviously at Temple, and the Eagles saw me play, and the Eagles brought me in for a workout. And the Eagles, they had 4 quarterbacks on the roster. They weren't planning to keep me. They brought on Michael Vick, and as soon as Michael Vick got out of jail at that time, that's when they gave me the boot. So I'm not saying that they did for me was a favor, you know what I mean? But it was one of those deals where it was like, hey, we got a local kid. It's not going to cost any money.
Mm-hmm.
Get a kid in there for camp. I'm with Donovan McNabb, he's cool as heck. People might not like him, but he's a super cool dude. I'm with AJ Feely, Kevin Cobb, who was the best practice quarterback I've ever seen in the history of football. Like, if you seen him practice, you would think that, like, this dude might win 9 MVPs in the NFL. And then obviously he got banged up and couldn't get in. But then Vic came, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like the style of play that I had, the CFL would have been perfect for me. And, obviously it didn't work out for a number of different reasons. But your point about the minor league system deal, it's like my buddy played in the XFL for a kid that I coached at Temple. His name's PJ Walker. And he was the XFL MVP 9 games in before the season folded. He was undefeated. He was on top 10 Sports Center. He's just lights out, just lighting this place up. And obviously teams took wind of that. He was with the Colts for a lot under Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
This kid, he was cut 10 times, brought back. You know what I mean? So he was active every once in a while behind Andrew Luck, not Peyton Manning. But him being in the XFL and the NFL team, seeing what he did, seeing some of the receivers that he was playing with and offensive linemen, and when you're successful, right, people want to come watch successful teams. So PJ got his opportunity. When he came out of the XFL, those guys saw how successful he was there. And, before signing with the Panthers, and then this year he was, the backup quarterback, and then he had a bunch of different opportunities and a bunch of different teams. So a lot of teams were offering him, some money to sign and opportunity to go play. So for him, it worked out. I think it could work. It's working, and I know there's the NHL, they're doing things like that. Obviously, the NBA has the D League, which guys have, gone into and been successful. I know the Knicks got a guy. I think he's on the Knicks. He's killing it from Georgia Tech. I believe he's on the Knicks. And then you're talking about former players like, Joe Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, they go into the D League, who used to be former like perennial all-stars essentially. They go down into the D League and get some buckets and then find a way to get back into the league. And I mean, it's like, does the NFL need it? They probably think that they don't need it because, essentially they have it on the practice squad. The practice squad, the 10, 12, how many guys are allowed? Maybe 14 this year because of, with COVID rules. So that's essentially how they use their minor league system, I would think. But I don't see the issue that I see is just the funding. Like the XFL folded, the other league, the AFL, I believe, was folded. I mean, that seems to be the issue, the money, the people not backing it. But now you got, The Rock coming up. I think it's next year. The XFL is back. So we'll see what kind of energy he brings and see if, they can push things forward and potentially help a lot of these kids, coming from college that want to, pursue professional avenue, but just can't cut it in the NFL to find a way to get paid enough money and find a way to make their way up the ladder to get on an NFL roster.
So, I mean, at what point did you decide that you wanted to go into coaching? And then when did you realize it was time?
I remember when I was playing, Matt Rule, who's the Carolina Panthers head coach, kind of like my mentor in the coaching world. He was my quarterback coach at Temple. I remember one time we were in a meeting and we butted heads every once in a while. I'm the quarterback. He's the OC. He's very intense. I'm intense. I'm competitive. You know what I mean? He knew how to push my buttons. You know what I mean? Which in a good way, sometimes in a way, sometimes he was being an ass. I remember one time he was like, one day you're going to coach for me. I just looked down. I was like, I'm never coaching for you, or I'm never coaching. Like, I saw the lifestyle. I saw how much time you put in, how much time you're away from your family. I saw how, like we were getting our butts kicked, and like next thing you know, you lose, 1 year badly, and you're looking for a job the next year. So it was, I think, 2012 I signed to play arena football, and in 2013 he got the job at Temple, I believe it was. And I remember he called me like, "Hey, listen, I got the job. I want you to come work for me." And I'm like, "Oh shit, it came true." You know what I mean? Like one of those deals. Like, this can't be real life. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pursue it. I'm going to go ahead and get back to Temple. Like, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, what avenue I wanted to take. I knew football was over for me. I was doing some high school stuff where I was just helping a couple of quarterbacks locally, but I didn't want to dig into that too much. So you're still, what was I? I don't know, 22 years old, 23 years old. I'm like, what's next? I still had a lot of time to figure some things out. I didn't have a family. I was free. So one of those deals where I could just go ahead and pursue something, maybe try to get my master's. So he offered me the gig to come up there. And from there, like I said, I was there from, 2013 to this past summer where I decided to, take the next step of, my life. So.
Yeah. So we can kind of get into that. Talk about your performance center you opened up with your brother. Where is it? What is it? And how'd you decide this was going to be the next move?
Well, we talked about this for a long time. We would all either coach on the same staff together, or one day we'd be able to train kids together and open a business together. Like something, one of those deals where, I got I'm 5 brothers. We have older brother Dom, myself, my brother Alex right below me, Anthony, who coaches at Lehigh University now, and then Nico is my youngest. And, we were all athletes. We all played football. We all played, basketball and baseball, whatnot. And it was just one of those deals where, for me professionally, it was the right time to get out of coaching. And it was the time for me to go ahead and attack this next stage of my life. So it's called the Michael Brothers Performance. And basically we're aiming to impact the youth in the Pittsburgh area, one step at a time and again, I'm obviously the quarterback trainer, where I just, I spend my time either doing one-on-one lessons or I'm doing group sessions right now. And then my brother Alex does all the linebacker stuff. He does some outside linebacker, inside linebacker, has done some defensive line stuff. So those are 2 positions that we've really concentrated on right now. And right now, obviously, the next stage and, my goal for this whole entire business is in the next 18 to 24 months, we'd love to have our own facility. Obviously, we don't have one of those up and running. And being from the north, how it is outside. They just said we're about to have a 10-inch ice storm or something like that's coming tomorrow night. So you have to have some form of indoor facility, if you want to keep your business running the right way and get kids. So we're renting a facility. Actually, Neil Walker, the former Pirate, is a good buddy of mine, and he has a place out past 28 in the Katanning area. And I'm renting a bubble from him once a week, and a couple of his buddies. No off-season, I think it's called No Off-Season Performance. And it's been really good. We've got a great turnout, kids from all different ages, different areas, different school districts. And we're literally just training kids day in and day out. We've been to numerous high schools. And that's the good thing in the spring. When the weather breaks, we can hit up all these different high schools. And I think that's when it's really going to blow up. I was talking to my brother, Dom. He's like, I didn't think things would be going this well so early. So I'm over here like, I want it to be even better. I want more. I need more kids. I need more people. I need, to make more of an impact. So, we've just opened up we just started selling hoods and t-shirts and long sleeve shirts and try to get our brand out there a little bit. We've done my brother Nico, who, he does videos and takes pictures for the kids and, gives them to them free of charge. So they have some things to post. So we're trying to do it, take it to a couple different avenues in different ways to, like I said, I'll keep saying this until the day that this business, shuts down, just trying to make an impact on the youth in the area, one step at a time. And it's been really good. The number of people that we've gotten reviews from, just texts from parents and, other coaches in the area has been really good. So, we've been really excited and we're happy. But like I said, I think once the weather breaks, the next step will just be even bigger. And like I said, it'll be more impactful.
So when you're either quarterback in general or overall athlete kind of things, what is the industry kind of changed since you were in that position as the kid? And what do you focus on to try to tell the kids like, hey, listen, I wish someone told me this?
Yeah, that's a good question because, a lot of parents are asking me, I coached quarterbacks at Temple. I coached receivers at Temple. I was a director of player development. I was a director of player personnel. I was offensive recruiting. So I wore like 7,000 different hats. And to me, that's something, it's a good thing. At the same time, it's like, all right, could you have just kept one hat on, Adam, and like been the quarterback coach for 10 years and, things could have been different. Okay. But I have a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas, especially recruiting. Recruiting is a different animal right now than it's ever been. Today's National Signing Day, when we're doing this podcast now. And there's a lot of high school kids that I've watched and evaluated that should be scholarship kids, and they're not because of this transfer portal. And, a lot of parents are having questions about this transfer portal. Like, why isn't my kid getting recruited? What do I need to do more of? It's like, listen, sir, ma'am, like you're doing all the right things. Like you're putting your tape out, you're reaching out to kids, but they're just not looking at you first. They're waiting to see who they can get the transfer. And then, you're basically the second fiddle. You're not the guy. Teams aren't going to take 25 high school kids now. They're going to take 10 to 12. And they're going to take 8 to 10 transfers and maybe leave some spots for the spring. And then when you're talking quarterbacks, right? I remember coming out of high school, I went to like a Joe Butler Metro Index camp. I went to a Syracuse camp. I don't remember no quarterback personal trainers. I don't remember anybody reaching out to me about anything like that. And I'm not saying that I'm some quarterback guru, like that I'm doing a bunch of different things that a lot of other people aren't doing. You know what I mean? But I feel like the thing that my brothers and myself can do, we relate really well to all kind of different types of players from different areas, different backgrounds, young kids, old kids. Like, we relate, we push them, we motivate them, and, we kind of give them that platform to go ahead and, make mistakes, but at the same time, find ways to fix them and give them the tools to fix them. So it's just different now. Sports in general is different. Recruiting is different. The training is different. Kids, parents don't want to pay for college anymore. So they'll do whatever the heck they can do to make sure that their kid can find a way to earn some kind of money on a scholarship. And again, that's a great thing. And at the same time, it's like, I can't believe that's, parents are spending this kind of money. And I'm not saying towards my business. Like, I'm just talking about in general, what I've seen and what I've been around, how much money parents will pay to get their kids training and travel. So it's just a different animal right now. And it's like, man, I wonder how different it's going to be in the next 5 years or maybe the next 3 years.
Yeah, you definitely have a valuable insight, and you're kind of one of the people you think in the area that quarterbacks should want to talk to because you've been on that other side. You've been the guy looking at the resumes, seeing who pops out on the page. And I think a lot of kids, it's just kind of like, make a video, send it to a bunch of people. Like if you're not at a big school or there's not someone else there getting recruited, you're kind of on your own to market yourself. And you're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. You hit it right on the nose. Some high school coaches do a really good job of helping their kids. And there's some high school coaches that are really nice guys that coach them hard, but they have no idea about recruiting and how to get their kids promoted. And not saying that, like, my job isn't to promote the kids to colleges as a quarterback trainer, for instance, right? For example, I'm trying to just give them the tools for when their opportunity comes to showcase, whether it's at a camp, whether it's, from film that we send to coaches, or whether it's at, them on their high school game. That's what our plan is. You know what I mean? Like, like I've had numerous college coaches reach out to me about some guys, and it's like, it's weird because it's like I'm a college coach again. It's like, hey, Coach DiMichele, what do you think about this kid, this quarterback, blah, blah, blah. It's like, guys, I don't coach football anymore, but it's basically like I'm still coaching. So it's a pretty cool thing, but it's a little different. It's just a little different.
So let's talk about some of the kids that are in college right now that are coming out into the NFL. If you got some scouting reports for me.
Yeah.
I got a couple names for you. If you can, let's talk about some guys with some experience against the higher level competition. I'll start with Matt Corral.
Yeah, so we had a tight end at Temple named Kenny Yeboah, and he actually, when the transfer portal popped up the first time around, Kenny left Temple. He went to Ole Miss, so he was playing with Corral. So I got to watch some, and I like Lane Kiffin's offenses. You know what I mean? So when you watch Lane Kiffin, you can get some ideas, and he used Kenny really well. So we were just looking at some ideas in the offseason. But the guy's really skilled. I mean, I've seen a lot of different. He can throw the ball down the field. He's athletic. He seems like he has a good grasp of things offensively without knowing what they do schematically. I don't know. It's like when I listen to guys talk, if you could imagine this, he's still one for some odd reason that's getting pushed to the bottom of the quarterback tree this year. You know what I mean? It's like initially, it's like, okay, Matt Corral. And then every time I'm listening to guys speak or I see things online, it's like, well, this guy might fall. And it's just like, hey, I mean, the good thing, though, is he'll have a chance at whether he's at his pro day or he's at the combine to really show if he can get under center and do some of the things schematically and make some of the throws that the NFL wants. And I'm sure he'll be able to do it. I mean, the athleticism that he shows when you just watch him is just top of the charts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely he had that name out there to start the season. And when you're playing down there and you're not a highly successful team, you kind of lose a little bit of ground. On the flip side, a player right here in Pittsburgh that's conference had a down year allowed him to really blow up. Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
What do you think about him?
I love Kenny. I have a small relationship with Kenny. When I was at Temple and I was obviously working with the quarterbacks, he was committed to Temple. So Kenny was Temple's quarterback. Like, we had him at camp. And I'm telling you this, like, I'm probably 6'4" on a good day. And Kenny, I guess it was probably his 11th grade year, maybe like that summer going to be a senior. And he was shorter than I was at camp. He had his hat on backwards, cool. He spun it, spins it the same way, has this like little bounce to him, competitive edge to him from about, an hour from Temple. And, he was committed to us. And then, Matt Rule took a job at Baylor. So, Kenny backed out and tried to get some different options. And obviously, a couple bigger schools came calling, and he went to Pitt. But I've been impressed. It's one of the deals where it's such a good thing that Kenny has so much film from being at Pitt for all the 7 years that he was there, 6 years he was there, and all the, the good, the bad, the ugly. But at the same time, it's a negative because people can go back and say, look at all this negative. Sometimes like, I don't know, like Mitch Trubisky had one great year. That's all that people saw. And then next thing you know, he's a first round pick. I know people were saying this is a down year at quarterback, but I went to the Virginia game this year and I was impressed with his toughness. I was impressed with his mobility. He can throw on the run. I mean, his arm's electric, and I just love the competitive nature about him. He reminds me of myself, and he reminds me, I say myself, Kenny's on a different level than me. And you see him being compared to like the likes of Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? That's where you kind of see that comparison in the NFL. And there's definitely some comparisons to him. And you could say, like you mentioned earlier, there's a down year in the ACC. But, I mean, he and Addison at Pitt just tore things up. And, I mean, from what I understand, he's doing pretty well down at the Senior Bowl and a lot of different elements. It's raining down there. And, he throws with two gloves on just like I did. So it's pretty cool to see. But I'm excited. I think he'll be one of the first quarterback, if not the first quarterback taken.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he waits a little bit, maybe 20.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, I can't deny that either. I don't mind seeing him in that black and gold.
But you talk about a lot of quarterbacks that come out of the draft, they don't usually stay around, and Kenny Pickett's one of those guys that stayed past his mandatory minimum to enter the draft. And we've seen guys come out like Roethlisberger, and they're more developed, they're more game ready when they come to the NFL because of the extra time they did spend at college. Another guy that spent his full term at college, which you played against him, I think, Desmond Ritter.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to sound like such a negative, bad human being. I just have never been a fan of Desmond Ritter. And I'm not saying this as a leader. I'm not saying this as a guy that doesn't appreciate his competitive nature. I'm not saying this as a guy that doesn't appreciate all that he did for Cincinnati and taking them to, the top 4 seed in the country and getting to the bowls and whatnot. But I just would stand there and I wanted to see for myself. Like I went when we played Duke in the bowl game. We watched Daniel Jones. I know he's not having a great NFL career, but you watched Daniel Jones throw. I was like, all right, Daniel Jones is probably going to be a top 10. Like I knew that he was like, even when Blake Bortles, this is so long ago, you saw Blake Bortles throw, and I know he didn't have an awesome career, but you could just see the ball come out of his hand. It's like, oh, this dude's going to do it. And I saw Desmond Ritter, and I'm just like, I don't see it. And that's just skill set wise. I'm not talking about anything else besides what I saw him from his skill set. Now, the other things, the intangibles, how smart he is, his leadership capabilities, him being able to lead an offense and not turn the ball over, him being able to take the easy throw with the check down. And then, when it's time to go ahead and I know he's beat us a couple times whenever I was at Temple. So, but that's one that I didn't see it. And I don't know him personally. I just didn't see that one. If he came to the Steelers, I wouldn't be overly happy, but that's just I'm probably being a little bit of a hater because he kicked our butt many a times at Temple.
So a guy kind of in the same boat, but with the level of competition being lower, he's probably going to slip a little. But Coach Tomlin just asked to be introduced to his family, Malik Willis out of Liberty. Have you gotten a chance to watch him?
I did a little bit, not as much. Obviously transferring from Auburn, so the kid was highly sought after in high school. But when you're talking, every time I hear Tomlin talk, he's talking about having someone that, that's a little more elusive with his feet. And I always say to myself, like, what does that mean? Do you want a runner? Do you want like Malik Willis isn't Lamar Jackson, like Lamar, he's not Mike Vick. Now, is he a level below those two guys? Maybe, because he's going to need some, a little bit of fine tuning throwing the ball. From what I've read and did some research and watched some tape of him down the Senior Bowl, he didn't have a great day, but I think he might have had a better day today. But he's one of those guys where it's like, okay, you left the school. Why did you leave that school? 2, you came to this next school and you did dominate at a lower level. So that's a good thing. When a guy leaves a bigger school, goes to a smaller school, he should dominate, and he did. So I know there's probably a lot of tape on him from Liberty, and he'll be able to talk to some people. And the great thing is, like I said, you're able to see, I believe they're all at the Senior Bowl. So you'll be able to compare all those guys. Maybe the only one that's not there is Howe from North Carolina. I don't know if he's there or not, to be honest with you. I don't think he is, but they'll be able to compare all those guys. And you'll have eyes on them and a ton of different things to be able to evaluate. So, but athletically speaking, the dude's gifted. He could spin it from, there's some clips where it's like, the ball comes out of his hand really well.
So of all these players, how do you kind of, seeing NFL guys come down and look at players you've had, do you see how they decide, or is each one different? Can you determine the coachability of a player? Can you determine his ceiling, his raw talent? Like where do guys kind of have that sweet spot when they're recruiting?
Yeah, it's tough. Just say for instance, when I was at Temple, a lot of scouts would come in and they'd talk to we have an NFL liaison, right? And then they'd come and talk to guys that have been around the program. I've been around the program for a long time. So they ask me personal questions, but that's the scout's job, to really dig in early on and be like, hey, who's this kid? Get the family background, is he coachable? A lot of guys spend time with the strength coach, because the strength coach is the guy on the staff that spends pretty much the most time with those guys. It's like, hey, can you push his buttons? What's what are the, the three best things that he brings to the table as a leader? Like, tell me one negative about him. Tell me something that you really can't stand. I mean, there's questions, like they must have a book of questions that they must ask. And they just, because obviously that's obviously their job. You know what I mean? They're going to go back and talk to the GMs and say like, hey, Kevin Colbert, like, Kenny Pickett is a turd. You know what I mean? Like he's not a good kid. Like he's not going to fit in with the Steeler culture, for instance, for example. But that's their job. It's like, I don't know if you'll be able to necessarily for the first time, if Mike Tomlin sat down with Desmond Ritter for the first time, and could he tell if he's going to be a right fit for the Steelers right down there? I don't think he can tell that. So he's going to have to lean on talking to, say, for instance, Luke Fickell. I don't know Luke Fickell, but I know he's the coach. And, he's going to talk to some of the scouts and say, hey, like, is Desmond Ritter going to fit in with what we're trying to do? You know what I mean? Is he the type of leader that we need? Is he a game manager? Like, how I think that he's really going to have to lean on the college coaches. They're going to have to lean on the scouts. And then, like you said, you bring guys in on visits, and, I'm sure they spend a lot of time down at the Senior Bowl and all these other bowls, and then at the combine, and then, you bring them in on visits. So that's when you really dig in and you can get a lot of people around them and, get them on the whiteboard. You know what I mean? I know John Gruden's not, too liked right now in the NFL circle, so I don't think they'll be doing any more of those Gruden camps, but, you'll be able to see some things that they do and just kind of see how they, under pressure, like, to get up there. Like I would always tell my quarterbacks, we bring a kid in on a visit and I'm like, all right, hey, listen, like, get that pen out real quick. And I said, you got 20 seconds, it's 3rd and 4. The game's on the line. You got to get a first down, draw me your play, go. And they can't even take the lid off the pen. You know what I mean? It's like they start shaking and some, you know what I mean? So a lot of people do a lot of different things to try to, figure out how you can motivate a kid, or what, you know what I mean? What kind of buttons you could push to see what kind of kid they are. And they do their due diligence, and some you hit on, and there's a lot of guys you miss on.
All right, man. Thanks. That'll do it here. We'll wrap it up. Appreciate it. Some great insight there. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Hey, I appreciate you guys, man.